Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Karina Paredes. I am a Student Engagement and Policy Associate for Public Advocates, and I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for those on Zoom. If there are any tech issues, just flag it in the chat box, and Jasmine and the tech team will help us figure those out together. But day 3, I know you've had a long weekend, and maybe for some of us, it's our first time back at a conference in person, so it's a big step, and hopefully for GA in the spring, there'll be more of us here together. But just major kudos to y'all for coming out, making it work, and doing what you can to stay safe, and just with your masks and everything. Super happy to be here with y'all. So a little bit about public advocates. So it might seem a little odd, like what is a civil rights law firm and advocacy organization doing at SSCCC's Leadership Conference? But I just want to give you insight that our organization really works with communities and students and families, and that's core to our work, our community partnership model. We strive to use our legal arm, our policy arm, to uplift those that are being impacted the most. And we've been doing this since 1971. So as you can see, the picture on your left, it's like black and white, right? Back in the 70s, those are some of the first folks that started the organization. And recently, since 2018, I've been working on the higher ed team. Our main focus is education equity and also transportation, housing, and climate justice, which is a different team. But the higher ed team has only been around since 2018, so I have the great privilege of helping us build that arm out to build on top of all of our K-12 work. So here are some pictures of some of the events that we've had. I was at GA a couple years ago presenting on a similar topic, so just to show you that my main role is really to build relationships with students, to hear what's going on with you on the ground, and take that up to my colleagues to continue to advocate with you and for you at the state level. And as we continue to enter this space, we really want to ensure that we're adding to what you need. We're not kind of recreating the wheel from what's already out there. There are a lot of orgs that are really involved with like financial aid, for example. So we want to ensure that we're supplementing that, not like recreating the existing work, and just supporting the current work that's needed. Any questions about public advocates? All right. So again, for today, the objectives and the agenda are to hear from you. You'll learn a bit about higher ed issues, specifically AB 705. You'll learn advocacy tools to help you at the local level and state level, and specifically research, communications, and legend policy tips. And lastly, we'll connect, so connect with PA, and hopefully this can start more of us as a resource for y'all, just a partnership in general. But first things first, we're going to have a gallery walk. So what that means is you see these posters around the room. So there's 3, and they have data points. And these data points are about the higher ed experience in the last year or so due to COVID-19, and also a higher ed point about AB 705. So for those on Zoom, there's a link in there, which Jasmine will re-copy and paste. So if you can go on that Google form, and there's 3 data points, and I just ask for y'all to, thank you, Jasmine. I can just show it also, maybe that's helpful. For those on Zoom, if you can just read the data point at the top, put down your college and your name if you feel comfortable, and then what is your woe or wonder, or which basically means like your reaction to this data point, and how does this relate to your personal experience and or your college campus. So there's 3 data points and 3 tables, so you'll just go down and do that, while the folks here in the room will go around, and they will, let me put it back. For those in the room, I'm gonna pass around these stickies. There's also pens that we have here. And again, you'll go around each data point. So I hope you all can kind of spread out to the 3 of them. And then you'll have about 3 minutes and each to write down your reactions. Like when I say wows, like what does that data point mean to you? Do you have questions? Do you have concerns? And then how does this affect your personal experience? I'd love to learn more about that and kind of get that conversation going, and also for y'all to learn about from each other how does this impact your personal experience at your college or peers that you know of that are going through something similar? So it can be anything. It's really just kind of brainstorming together to kind of get our mind going around that. So I'm just going to walk away from the mic, but I'll pass these out really quick. So you can just take some Post-its and then pass them around. Oh, yeah, let me go back. So the question is just to go back to the directions. All right, so when you're ready, stand up, shake it out a little bit. I know it's early, it's been a long weekend, but if I could have some folks, there's about, let's see, 2, 4, 6, maybe like 10 of us, so if you can just have like about 3 people at each, and then I'll start a timer for 3 minutes, and then we'll just rotate. So you'll just rotate, let's see, I'm always bad at this. To your left, like clockwise, counterclockwise, I don't know. So I'll start the timer, and then I'll tell you when to move. And the ones on Zoom, you have the same data points. And just fill out like your wows, wonders, and how this is reflected in your personal experience and your college. I wish I could put music on, but it's okay. Is it okay if I play music with my phone? Okay, thanks. It's too quiet. Oh yeah, of course. Here you go. Yeah. Oh, thanks. So about a minute left in the current one that you're on. But if you want to start moving, you can as well. You can move to your right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Thanks. Just leave the Post-it on the big Post-it. All right, so students have a question about the data point. Black and Latinx students are more likely to attend weak implementer colleges. Colleges with at least 2,000 Black students are twice as likely to offer high proportion of remedial math. So they're wondering what the last sentence means around, is it like two times as likely?
Yeah, the 2 times as likely.
Yeah, so it means that colleges who are weak at implementing AB 705, so that means they have more remedial ed courses than transfer level courses. They, those colleges with at least 2,000 Black students, which is, a lot of colleges don't have any Black students. 2,000 is like a lot of, and with 2002, it's, from our data, it's like with CAP, it's about like 10% of their population. So it shows that those colleges with like more Black students aren't doing their job at implementing it as they should be. So they're actually offering a lot more remedial math than like colleges that are doing a good job at implementing AB 705.
So like lower level math?
So remedial math is like high school math that you probably already took in high school, but you're being told you have to take it again in college. And it doesn't count, which I'll talk about that a bit more, but it's basically taking like, I would say like Algebra 1 type of courses in college instead of directly being enrolled in transfer level math and English. Does that help? Yeah. Okay, and we'll debrief together afterwards. So if you want to rotate, you can do so. Keep them if you want, or you can get back to me. Great. All right, about 1 minute left. And no rush, we still have time. But once we're done, I'll start reading some of them so you all can hear about what folks are saying. And feel free to read them yourself too if you'd like. So I see some comments on the Google form, so it's really exciting, and I'll be sure to read some of those off too. All right, so let's start off with the first one. Black and Latinx students are more likely to attend weak implementer colleges. Colleges with at least 2,000 Black students are twice as likely to offer a high proportion of remedial math. And I had some good questions about, in general, remedial math. What is that? What does it mean to be like a weak implementer? And we'll get more into depth a little bit later, but just an overview, remedial math and English are courses that you already took in high school or you already took back in that time period, whether you're going straight from high school to college or you're returning back to college, you already took these courses. So you should be entering college level math and English. And remedial math courses are usually like algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, and they're called a lot of different things at your community college, like intermediary math, and there's a lot of different breakdowns for them too. But these courses don't provide you credit or to transfer, and a lot of students, as data shows, and maybe and I'll just ask from the audience, raise your hand if you've heard of AB 705. I see some folks raise their hand. Okay. Well, data shows that these courses just hinder students. They hold them back. They're a reason why students end up dropping out because they can't get through this math that they've already done. They're like, why am I going to stay in college if I can't get through this course? But the issue with them is that, again, they're just building on to adding more units to your course load. They're not helping you or moving you or advancing you. And data shows that students who enter directly into transfer level math and English, they succeed. And when they have co-requisite support courses, like extra tutoring in their schedule, they do even a better job. So AB 705 passed in 2017. And it essentially eliminated the placement test. So colleges can make you take a test to put you in a math or English course. And it told the colleges they have to do, I think the Zoom ended. Oh, okay. Are we good on tech? Okay. Short break. Short pause. It's like frozen on Zoom. No worries. But I'll just scroll through these while, so you guys can read, so y'all can read them. Oh, let me see. Thank you. Okay. All right, I'll just scroll down while we wait. It works? They can hear me? Okay. They just can't see me. Okay. Okay, well, if y'all can hear me and you're still on, feel free to go through the Google Doc to see what your other peers wrote down. And also if you are just waiting and they can't. Oh, okay, I thought you said they could. Okay, well, I should wait until. Okay.
I'll check in with you guys next Wednesday.
Okay. Well, I don't want to move on it.
Just here.
Yeah, I don't want to move on if they're not on either. Unless I'm directed to do so, then I can do that.
Oh no.
But
Right now, we'll just chill.
yeah.
You tell stories or
Let's go around and tell stories. I don't have any jokes. Where's Jen with her jokes? While we're waiting, I'll just ask really quick. Maybe we can just go down and see like your name and what college you're from. Once you have time.
My name is Hillary and I'm from Cypress College.
Where's that?
In Cypress, California, Orange County.
Okay.
I'm Adrian. I'm also from Cypress College.
Oh, yeah.
My name's Teodora, Cypress College.
Um, so I'm Chewy, and Mike, and I'm from Cypress College as well.
My name is Jesse, and I'm from Cypress College.
Cypress College came through. Nice. How about y'all? Want to start here?
I'm Lauren. I am from Chaffey College as well as from the Black Caucus.
I'm Veronica from Chaffey College.
It has by Hayward, right? Or
San Bernardino.
oh wait,
County.
Yeah, Chaffey is about, on a good day, let's see. From here to Chaffey is about an hour and 15 minutes.
oh, okay. What?
So off of this 210.
Oh, okay. I was in
Now we have 3 campuses. So.
oh, nice. Okay.
I'm Zamia. I'm from Garfield College.
Hi, I'm Manal. I'm from Northwell as well.
Okay, and where's Norfolk in?
So do you know where Kern is?
Oh yeah.
It's right above.
Oh, okay. So more like would you say like Inland Empire?
Yeah,
Oh,
ID.
ID and then
We're about 45 minutes from them on a good day.
yeah.
On a good day.
Chaffey is long.
What was it?
Chaffey's long drive.
Oh, usually, just because like traffic, right? Or everybody's in the traffic here.
It's not the district, but it's like traffic.
Yeah.
Are you from Northtown?
So I'm originally from San Luis Obispo, which is yeah, like Pleasant College, Hancock area. A really small town called Grover Beach. Oh, is it working? Oh, sorry.
not up yet, but just tell after the mic.
Oh, for the break this. Okay. Oh yeah. So I'm from San Luis Obispo and currently live in Sacramento, and I've lived there for about over 3 years, mainly for my job with public advocates. I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad. So go Bears. If you have any questions about Berkeley, let me know. Some folks asked me yesterday, so we had a little chat about it. But yeah, this state has so many awesome colleges and universities, so you can't go wrong, I'd say.
What did you study at UC Berkeley?
Legal studies and social welfare with an ed minor. It's a good balance of, like, they all interconnected really well.
Did you do that because you went into law, like you wanted to go into law?
No, but a lot of people do. So I work with lawyers, but I'm not a lawyer. But it's really cool to see how they use their skill set in such a different way than like going to like corporate field or like going into like more just litigation. You know, there's just so many things you could do with that degree. So it's nice to see that. Mm-hmm. I was here to a 4-year, but I was dual enrolled in high school at Cuesta, which that was really helpful. And there's just so many opportunities within community college. Like I didn't know about that until like my counselor brought it up because of I didn't have room for like my visual performing arts class. So that was an alternative. Like, oh, you could take it at Cuesta. So that was really helpful. And so many things like that people don't know of. But I know a lot of students that transferred to Cal and started at CC first. And it's just so awesome to see. And I think Cal and UCLA have really high numbers for that. Like they try to match their transfer level folks that enter to like their freshmen. Like not 1-to-1, but they try to keep it balanced too. But there's just so much power in what like your journey is, which I'll talk more about later. But I definitely recommend looking into that option if you're interested in Northern California and just the Bay Area. And Cal is just an awesome place to be. Yeah.
Later on when the meeting's working, do we get to share like what we wrote?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And then we'll jump into the presentation with the tips that I have. Are you all in student government? Is that how you know about this conference?
Yeah.
Cool.
I attend Region 9, so I send them the invite to our execs.
Nice. Okay. How do people? Oh, go ahead. Oh, nice. Awesome. How do students? Is it just student government folks who come, or do you open it up to others? Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, I'm dual role because I'm part of the Black Caucus, so I came pretty much on behalf of the caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much initially how I found out about it was through different groups of SSCCC,
Mm-hmm.
which is the organization that is hosting the event.
Okay.
So, but yes, I'm a former student government officer though.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot about sharing the mic.
I know, right?
So many. Oh wait. I thought you raised your hands.
Oh, I was just saying that also like it's extended to all student government because our AS, like our budgets will pay for it, but if I believe our college students can go too if they're not really involved in student government, but the college has to pay for it. So we don't really have that because I think it's a little bit more complicated. So it's usually just student government and the regions.
Okay, so the student government will pay for the student government students, but then if a student wants to go that isn't, the college will, or they have to ask them.
For our case, the student trustee would pay for the. The district will pay for the student trustee because he's from the district.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm curious, since we talked about the funding y'all have, and with the SURF money, well, yeah, at your system-wide level, it sounds like it's really supported with how much more money you got this last year. I'm just curious, like at your local level, if you already had a lot of funding, or if this like really helped, because it seems like before it was really case by case with each college.
We get I think mostly all of our money from the student services fees. I don't know about other schools, but we only get ours from our student service fees. Our student service fee is kind of high, so we do get a lot more, but we usually end up using it. And then whatever is not used, it goes to the trust. But in this case, like a lot of the money from last year got carried over to this year. And since we're in person, it's being used a lot more than it would have being online. But yeah, most of the money usually just comes from the student services fees. Is that the case with Cyprus? Huh? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it just comes from that, and then the SSCCC gets like $1 from ours, like all the colleges from their student service fees. A lot of them have it for $2. I think ours is like $30 for the big terms. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. And I just asked because the funding is so important at every level, whether it's like for your student government or at the state level. So I just I'm curious if y'all are getting what you deserve and need to get students out here and to do whatever your goals are on campus too. And funding is a huge thing in general as a theme for public advocates. Like our K-12 work really focused in the early 2000s on the local control funding formula to ensure students were getting the money they needed, specifically high need students. And now in higher ed, we're also trying to focus on funding to ensure like CCs are getting what they need, higher ed segments are getting, and I know it's always really tough because of the budget, but anyways, just to say funding and transparency is really important to us.
And also,
Oh, we're back.
okay.
Okay, I'll come back to your comment after. All right. So we're back. That was a little intermission. We have about 30 minutes left, so I do really want to get through everything. So if I go a little fast, feel free to stop me. But so I'm going to go through the Post-its and read off some of the comments. And for those who wrote on the Post-its, if you would like to add to what I say, please raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over to you. And then I'll go through the doc really quickly. And after that, we'll jump into the presentation. Oh, wait, so actually we left off over here, sorry. So like I was saying, AB 705 passed in 2017. All colleges had about 2 years to fully implement it. And it eliminated the use of placement tests, which colleges were already not supposed to be doing that, not supposed to be using them, but some still were. So they completely eliminated them. As we know, or as data shows, placement tests really impact a lot of Black and brown students negatively. And it's like one test that determines your path for community college, right? What if you're having a bad day and you just messed up on that test? Now you're stuck in all these lower level courses. So with this data point, what it's really trying to highlight is just the fact that colleges that aren't doing a good job at implementing AB 705, which again is direct enrollment to transfer level math and English, which will help students not waste time, money, and energy on remedial ed courses. These weak implementers aren't doing a good job for specifically Black and brown students, and just in general, transfer level courses help students advance their goals just way faster, and data shows that remedial ed courses don't help any student group. So some of your wows and wonders included, read the first one. Let's see. Okay, this is setting Black students and the Black community backwards. I don't know why they're teaching such low classes in college. Talk list of predominant Black students. Hope I said that right. But yeah, exactly. These courses, research shows, don't help anyone, so they are really setting back students when they have goals, right? Whether it's to transfer or to get their credential degree. There's just so many different pathways that students have when they enter, and this is just a huge barrier. Let me see another one. Okay. These colleges should make a change and implement more readily accessible and higher math levels. Some colleges have, like an LACCD, I think LA Trade Tech, eliminated math courses 2 levels below transfer level, which is great, but they still have at least like 1 level below. So how are we ensuring that colleges are moving fast on this? And one more before I move on. Okay, never had the issue of being, as I'm a student, never had the issue of being, okay, so this person has never had this issue with having to take remedial math. So some students have already gone through this, and the reason we push so much for this at Public Advocates is just because if you're interested in really like, again, I know SSCCC is, but with advancing equity at the community college level, this is a important tool that really could help transform more and more colleges. So since that law has passed, there have been a lot of important changes, and a lot of more colleges are doing the right thing, but we still see huge gaps. So this is one of our main priorities at Public Advocates, to ensure that we're working with students to advance this. Whether you've gone through this or not, or right now you're in the middle of, am I in a remedial math course? We want to support just to move the needle on higher ed equity at the community college level. And with that, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, how did COVID-19 pandemic affect current college students? So this is from a report from the California Student Aid Commission, CSAC, and CSAC is basically the government agency that holds all our Cal Grant financial aid and other types of aid. So they had a report that came out in summer of 2020 to highlight some of the challenges that students were facing. So the data point that they found at that point, which was a year ago, and we're still in the pandemic a year later, so I think we still need more research, but just initially, it showed 71% of students lost some or all of their income. 46% experienced a change in their living situation, and 24% dropped one or more courses in the spring of 2020. And some of your reactions are, these numbers are extremely high and worrisome. Let's see. How did COVID-19 pandemic affect college students? This person wrote down more of, they're just writing this down, I think, maybe to remember the data points. Someone else wrote, I'm not surprised about the first data point. People lost their income, but shocked it was that many. 2, I pray that a part of the 46% was at least for the good. So hopefully they're hoping that maybe some who changed their living situation, it was a positive thing. And then for the third point about dropping courses, that's sad. This has probably caused them to have to stay an extra year or semester. And I'm going to move on just for time's sake, but just to think about these both of these data points, I want you to think about like what does this look like on your campus, and again for yourself as well, just to get you thinking on like these challenges are still here, right? These data points are still relevant. So I'll move on to this third one, and then I'll jump back to the presentation. So the third point, total enrollment in the CC system dropped by 5.2% in 2020. Course withdrawals increased by 55%, and course enrollment fell by 17%. So this data point comes from a report that the governor of California, he has a higher ed post-secondary council. So this committee of students from CC, CSU, UC, and other leaders in the segments created this report to highlight how we can recover from the pandemic. And this is one of the data points that they found. And one of the issues they need to address, that we all need to address, is just the low decline in community college enrollment this last year. Some of your reactions included students were depressed, got sick, caused divorce, homelessness, hard to focus and concentrate. Course enrollment fell, ? I thought more people would stay because they wouldn't want to pay the cost of a 4-year. And someone wrote, course enrollment fell by 20,000 students. A lot of my friends dropped classes, particularly math, science classes. I'm honestly in awe of these stats. I've had to resist dropping some courses as my mental and physical state has degraded dramatically. So as you hear all these comments from your fellow peers, just think too how many students like this feel the same way at your campuses. And some of the Google comments, let me pull one out. Let's see. Someone from Miracosta College said, I'm surprised to see that Black and Latinx students are more likely to attend weak implementer colleges. I wonder if there's ever going to be a difference of Black and Latinx students going to weak implementer colleges. This relates to my personal experience because I am a Latinx student. However, I don't know how to tell if the school I'm going to now would be considered a weak implementer college. I am at a community college because I can't afford to go to a 4-year out of high school. And I'll move on to another one. For the CSAC report of all the impact of COVID-19, a student from West Hill said, it is pretty unfortunate that due to this outbreak, the devastating effects it forced people into, I can relate to some of these experiences of having to adapt to new situations in order to make everything work. May it be a different job or a new study tactic in order for me to be on top of grades. Additionally, when it happened in high school, not having a true social interaction was pretty devastating and unmotivating to pursue that schoolwork to my full potential. Someone from Sac City said, this is really upsetting. I know that COVID was difficult for a lot of students at Sac City. This pandemic definitely took a toll on students, home life, work life, and school life. So with that, just gonna let y'all think about those comments, and I'm gonna switch back to the presentation. And the purpose of this is really to have y'all share your experience and hear from one another. And now, and I'm trying to connect this to Nothing About Us Without Us, which is a book, kind of a quote by James Charlton around folks with disabilities. So the main purpose of this quote means that nothing that we do or others are doing, like at the policy level, with those type of changes, should be done without those that are being most impacted. So the reason I bring this up is because I want y'all to think about all these issues that are going on your campus in your personal experience. And you, as Acting Chancellor Daisy Gonzalez said, you are the owner of your experience. You are the expert in your experience. So keeping all of these in mind and what your peers are going through, how can you take these issues and activate your peers on campus? So this is now where we turn over in our remaining 20 minutes to talk about some tools. So advocacy tools in AB 705, and I'm going to use AB 705 as an example of how we've used these tools at Public Advocates to advance our goals and how that can be done so as well with you at your local college or at the state level. So first, with advocacy tools that I'm presenting today, we have the higher ed issue that's a focus. So it can be anything like basic needs on your campus, fixed financial aid, campus climate, police presence on your campus, number of issues. And I know every campus is different, right? So what's going on at the local level for you might be different from like Norco College to Citrus College. And right now I'm going to focus on AB 705. So again, this ensures that students enter and complete transfer level math and English in 1 year. And the three tools that I'm going to highlight are research, communications, and policy and legislation. And I'm going to jump into that and highlight the bullets that I have below. So at Public Advocates, we used research to further advance the issue around weak implementer colleges that aren't implementing AB 705. And for y'all, I want you to really think about how do you use data to your advantage? There's so much data out there. Just this information you provided, one could say it's qualitative data, right? So how are you using data points from your college to further your message with your own president at your campus, with your professors, with your local peers to convince them of an issue to get them to jump on board? So some suggestions I have are to take surveys of students on your campus. You can do that with a Google form. It doesn't have to be through like SurveyMonkey or something that maybe would be more, would use more of your funds. Getting stories from students and creating those into data points could be really helpful. And demanding data of your own campus is really important. The CC system has so much data, and it's not always very easily accessible. I definitely know that from experience of trying to understand some of the issues at the community college level. And your campus has bunches of data too, and some of it online is old. So you really could ask your administrators to give you reports on this data. This is public information that is about you, so I really urge you all to demand for that data on your campus to understand an issue better. If it's basic needs, I'm sure they have data about that. So how can you ask them for more of that data, or even partner with them to have a report, like a student government at Norco College and the college having a report together? That'd be really powerful, and you could both work together to create something to really show the issue on your campus. And I also suggest familiarizing yourself with statewide higher ed researchers. So we worked with the California Acceleration Project, which they're basically a organization of faculty that have been around for over a decade, advancing the issues around remedial math and English and pushing for more equitable access to transfer level math and English. So we work with those partners, but there's other organizations that have such awesome data out there and are always coming out with reports. So one of them is PPIC, the Public Policy Institute of California. They do a lot of research with the community colleges, so there's a lot of important information out there for y'all to really dig into. And even just the high level like slides they have are super useful. They give you bits and pieces of what's going on at your segment. And sometimes they highlight certain colleges with whether they're doing a better job or they still have room to grow. So you can see if your college is there. There are other organizations like the California Competes and Career Ladders Project, which focus on higher ed issues as well. And again, just more data points, which we already talked about, AB 705, but just to show you how powerful this is. Students who start in transfer level math are, for English and math, they complete it at a much greater level than students who first start in remedial ed and then go to transfer level. So on the left for English in the 2019-2020 year, students who started first in remedial math and then transfer level had a 25% chance of completing. But students who directly started in transfer level English completed a 70% chance. And then for math, students who started first in remedial ed, their chances of entering and completing transfer level was only 14%, compared to 60% for those who just directly were in transfer level math. So coupling this data point with the narrative of students often doubt their own abilities in English and math, the colleges maybe aren't supporting them, combining the data point with a certain message that you're trying to put out there is really powerful. And now to the next slide, communications. Your story is your power. You're the expert in your experience, as I hope that really rings true to you. Just hearing that yesterday really reminded me. And students, you have so much power, even though there are obviously barriers. I think once you are collectively advancing an issue together, especially through communications like social media, it's just so incredibly powerful. And this is a new tool that wasn't around really, 10, 15 years ago. And so there's some traditional ways to do this, like using your local college or city newspaper to highlight issues with op-eds and articles. And Public Advocates has had op-eds with students in the past, and we're more than happy to provide workshops on those too. We have a communications manager who has helped students with formulating the outline of an op-ed, so more than happy to be that resource. Again, social media is a golden opportunity. I highly suggest you follow your higher ed orgs like us, Public Advocates, other local colleges around you. Legislative members, if you look up your legislative member, they're very active on social media. That's a way to really kind of put some fire under them, is tweeting about them and what the need is that you would like to see at your city or college level. Oftentimes I see so many higher ed folks tweet at their ledge members through like social media campaigns where you just have a bunch of students, a bunch of organizations having a call to action on social media. So it's a lighter lift than having to go in person, right? And it's trickier, but you see it's all over your feed. It's trending around your local area. So using Twitter, it's one of those unlikely avenues, but I've seen it be very powerful with a lot of campaigns around bills like AB 1456 to fix financial aid and others. And student leaders, there are so many people that I haven't met in person, but they follow me on Twitter, and I follow them back because they're interested in higher ed issues. Maybe they'll tweet about something later that's interesting to me, like an article or a call to action, then I can connect with them. So just having that informal contact online is super powerful. And there is like a higher ed Twitter community out there too, where there's always research being shared, opportunities, jobs, connections. So I definitely suggest getting more on social media to advance your message. And lastly, website infographics and a video campaign. So on your screen you see a website landing page. Public Advocates worked with students making a change, and they're based out of City College of San Francisco. And we partnered with them to build up their website around AB 705. We also worked with them on these infographics to give out to students, virtual, since we did this during COVID. And I used Canva to create this. Canva.com, I believe. There's so many different templates there that you can play around with. And there's like a free trial, so really easy ways if you don't have maybe the resources on campus or you want to test it out first on your own to create these type of resources. And then we put a lot of energy on video, which I wish I could show you right now, but there isn't sound in this room for me to show it to you. But anyways, I dropped it in the chat box for those on Zoom. And you can also access the video if you go to ab705.org. It's a 2-minute video just giving you an explainer about the importance of AB 705. So a lot of these tools require time, resources, but I think they're really helpful when you come with a group, like at your student government, and decide we're going to work on a video, one infographic, and a social media campaign online, just to amplify your one message of, let's say it's having more of a positive campus climate culture, or fighting anti-racism on campus. Like, developing your main message and then using communications is another powerful tool to distribute that widely, especially when we're not all in person. And policy and legislation. So I want y'all to fully remember that electeds are here to serve you. You are their constituents. They need to, yes, they are at the Capitol, they're at their district office and whatnot, but at the end of the day, they need to serve you as you're the ones who supported them getting in or voted for them, etc. So familiarize yourself with a couple of committees, which for those who are really into policy and ledge, maybe you already know about this, but for those of you that aren't so into that world, I just want to suggest going on to the Assembly Education Committee, the Assembly Higher Education Committee, the Assembly Budget, and the Senate Education Committee. So you can see, is my member on one of these committees? So the chair of the Assembly Higher Ed Committee is Assembly Member Jose Medina, who's in the Riverside area, and he's been the chair of that committee for a couple of years now. So knowing, oh, that's my member, I really care about higher ed issues, and now I know that he's the chair, how can I amplify or connect with him, my message? How can you as a student government get like on their radar, or just so you know what the committees look like. They hold a lot of power throughout the ledge cycle. So if you're sending support letters, you're sending them to one of these committees about a higher ed issue. And sometimes there's just so many different committees, but I really hope you all can do some research and go into that. I'm not going into it today because I don't want to take up too much time, but for a long time I didn't know these existed. So if there's any way with any issue that you care about at the state level, this is a great way to start understanding like who makes up these committees, and is there a way I can get connected with them. Next, demand change from your community college, district board of governors. So again, more at the local level, familiarize yourself with the board of governors, who makes those up, who are the key stakeholders, attending their meetings. And lastly, familiarize yourself with the administrative leaders and academic committees on your campus. So there are a lot of key players just on your campus. I'm sure there's a lot of politics around who's who makes what decisions. So knowing who those key players are will help you understand, like, we need to target our message at this administrator. We need to ask for a meeting with this administrator. We need to rally around in a call to action about this issue with this administrator, because they deal with basic needs or they deal with student success. A lot of different admin folks have different responsibilities. It's not just the president, let's say. There are a lot of folks under them who deal with a lot of student success and finance issues, so understanding who are the key players and hold these roles is really important in getting your message across at the local level. And just some calls to actions as an example with AB 705 that we've used is telling students to demand change from their board of governors by giving public comment, getting connected with student government. So I always amplify that when I meet with students. Some of them aren't familiar with student government at all, so letting them know that there's a lot of access within them is something that I also encourage y'all to do when you're meeting with new students. And then lastly, which I touched upon earlier, just advocating for your goal, which in this case, AB 705 implementation, with the president, the vice president of instruction, the deans of math and English, like the department heads that you're trying to go and work with. And then last but not least, partnerships. So I didn't put this initially, but this is, I would say, the foundation of all of this work. As you can see, I refer to a lot of different organizations that we work with, because partnerships are so key, whether it's, which on the slide I've showed, like student partnerships like with SMAC, other external partners like if you heard of the Ed Trust West, the Institute for College Access and Success, the Campaign for College Opportunity, Public Advocates works with a lot of partners, and that is just key to our success, and that's something that I also urge you all to look into, whether it's the Black Student Union at your campus, the any like other club that, like in undergrad, I was really involved with this group called Hermanas Unidas, so it's more like a Latinx-based group. Just really getting folks that have similar interests. Maybe the interests aren't 100% aligned, but maybe there's one issue that you all really care about. How do you get your student clubs involved on that? How do you work with your neighboring CC's clubs to get on that issue? Creating those partnerships and alliances is so important because it just gives you that collective power to build on your message. And PA, we want to be one of those partners for y'all, and we'd love to connect you with any of the others that are listed on here. And again, just want to reiterate the importance of leaning on one another is just so valuable, because PA, we don't know everything, and we know that, but we lean on so many different partners, and they lean on us, and it just helps us really drive our message and our advocacy home. Lastly, getting involved. So this is just a final message to y'all about AB 705. I'm trying to intertwine that throughout. I really urge y'all to look into what, and not even, I don't want you to have to do the research. I'll work with you to give you that information about what does your college look like with AB 705. We have a lot of data on this issue. If you have any interest at all, I'd love to talk to you one-on-one about it. And in general, maybe this issue, again, you've already gone through it, or you don't know many people about it that are that have been impacted by remedial math and English. But I just want to say that at the segment level, this is, again, like I mentioned this earlier, one of the key issues that could drive higher rates of equity around our segment. Right now, there's a lot that maybe barriers to getting to a certain goal for the CC, funding barriers, COVID, et cetera. But this law is already existing. It's already in place, and it would just help so much with students entering and completing courses that they need to do without being stuck, without wasting their time and money, getting to the goal faster. So I'd love to talk more about AB 705, and up here there's some tips on how to demand more implementation of this on your campus. And I'd love to chat more about that, but I do want to give us some time for Q&A since we have about 4 minutes left. So I'm just going to leave you with an action hub, hashtag AB 705. If you look that up, the sooner we rise AB 705, you'll see more info out there. My email's up here. I'd love to talk to you. It doesn't have to be about AB 705, but if it is, even better. I just love to connect on any issue, and whether it's now that we see some way to work together or in the future, I'm here to reconnect later as well. AB705.org has a lot of great tools, infographics, video, contact forms to get connected with us on this issue specifically. And up here, I know you have a survey on your phone, but I'd love if you could go to this tiny URL and fill out my survey, if that's okay. I'm not sure, I didn't ask beforehand, but there's a tiny URL, and I'd love if you can just take our quick survey, and you'll be entered in a raffle if you do. And then lastly, the contact form. I was going to make it a tiny URL, so sorry that I didn't do that. But this is also found on the website, and this is specifically if you as a student have an issue with remedial math and English, we'd love to help you one-on-one on that to ensure that your rights are being heard and that you're actually being put in the courses that you should be. So with that, I'll leave the screen up for a bit so you can go to the tiny URL and take the quick Google form, and I'll just take questions and answers, or I'll take questions and give you hopefully an answer for our remaining time. And if there's any on Zoom, maybe Jasmine, you can help me with that? Thank you. Oh, there isn't? Oh, my bad. Okay. I thought we were back. Okay. Hopefully, maybe they'll watch it after. And it could be questions about anything, these data points, the tools, any experiences that you're curious about in the higher ed world, or working with students, working with external partners. And if you don't have any now, you can email me later about them. But thank you so much, y'all, with all the tech issues and everything. I hope you enjoyed this workshop, and just super excited to stay connected. Again, whether it's now or later, feel free to reach out to me whenever whenever it makes sense for you and your student government, or again, just you as a person, if you want to learn more about my higher ed journey, I'd love to chat about that too. Thank you.
How do you get into the position you are in, and what's a general summary of your journey?
All right, great question. So how did I get into the position that I'm in, and what is a general summary of my higher ed journey? So again, my title is Student Engagement and Policy Associate with Public Advocates with the higher education team. I work closely with students on power building, base building, and connecting student voice and student experience to local and state level advocacy. So I've attended a lot of conferences in the past to meet students, really trying to amplify their issues with my colleagues who are more in the state level advocacy world. We've hosted events with students, webinars to ensure that they're being heard, and doing that in partnership, not for them, but with them. And I heard about this organization back in 2018 when I was at a point of, I was working in the mental health field, which was just super incredible, but I realized I didn't really see a long-term future in going into a master's program or anything like that. So I decided to go back to more of one of my core passions, which is education. But as you know, there's so much in education. Like, you can be a teacher, you can be a counselor, you can be, there's just endless types of jobs in that world. So as I was trying to figure out what my next step looked like, I learned about public advocates. I saw they were building up this new higher ed team, and higher ed has completely changed my life for the better. So I automatically found a close connection with this title. And from there, just interviewed. The process was about, I think, like 2 interviews and a cover letter, resume, etc. Which more than happy to talk more about that with folks who are in the job hunting process. But now that I've been with public advocates, their values align with mine so closely. Like, overall, the organization's really focused on breaking down systemic barriers that are the causes of poverty and discrimination. So under that huge umbrella, we have our education equity work and our transportation and housing justice work. And anyways, I work with just incredible colleagues that inspire me so much every day. And I think that's just so important with anything you do, whether it's student government or your job that you're looking for in the future, or your end goal journey. Having a team of folks that you work with that constantly motivate you is just key. Like, why would I want to go to a job every day if I didn't like the people that I worked with, if I didn't feel like their values aligned with mine, if I didn't feel like a purpose to that work? So it's a little, in a nutshell, that's more of like my role and how I got there. With my higher ed journey, as I shared with y'all, I'm from the San Luis Obispo area. I identify as Latina, Mexican American. My mom only went to 6th grade in Mexico. My dad immigrated to the US when he was about 13 or so. So he went to some schooling here in California, but then he was just constantly going back and forth between Mexico and back in the Central Coast, where he lost a lot of time in high school and ended up dropping out. So he never graduated, or he didn't go back to get a GED or anything like that. So being a first-gen student has been one of my core identities. In middle school and high school, I was in the student success programs like AVID, Upward Bound, and that's where I found a family of folks that were on the same journey as me. They didn't have, their parents didn't go to higher ed. They're also low income. We're part of a community that's like predominantly white and predominantly middle and upper class, as you can imagine, like the Central Coast area. So having that community in high school really helped me push to going into my higher ed journey. And UC Berkeley was really tough due to the cultural shock. It was just so different. Going from a small town to Berkeley, that's just a huge difference there. Financial aid was always an issue because I come, again, from a really low-income family, EFC of 0. But I worked a lot in college. I was super involved with clubs like Hermanas Unidas and our student government. So that just gave me a lot of reason to stay involved and to keep pushing. Even though classes were hard, I oftentimes would give more energy to being involved on campus than to my coursework, which maybe wasn't a good thing. But at the end of the day, one of the lessons that I've learned is just getting involved in anything that gives you purpose and drive is extremely important. And then also those connections you make, they'll come back, and those lessons that aren't in the classroom are super valuable. So you all being here, putting yourselves out there, not staying comfortable is so important. Even though it feels nice to just be comfortable and do maybe like the same thing, or it's scary to put yourself out there, that's like where you learn so much. So I highly suggest you do that, and I hope that was a good summary. I'd love to talk more about it too.
We have another question in the chat which says, I would like to explore where funding distribution from equity programs come from, and how do we engage in the policies that regard the funding distribution.
And what was the first part? Funding distribution of what?
For equity programs.
Oh, equity programs. So the question was, they're interested in the funding distribution of student equity programs and where that funding comes from. All right, so at the community college level, there's this bucket of money, if I'm understanding the question correctly, right, and I'm connecting it to what I know about this, the student equity and achievement funds. So some of those funds are tied to AB 705, but there's a lot of money there, and that's a issue area that public advocates is interested in getting into, because from the information we've looked up, it's really hard to figure out, one, where the money comes from, how colleges get it, and two, how our college is using it. So if there's interest in that, I don't have a great answer, but I'd love to connect with that person. My understanding, especially with COVID, there's a lot of money now going to colleges, specifically around these funds. As you may have heard, with COVID relief funds, each segment got a bunch of money. At the community college level, got like $3 billion. So just around the lines of funding, like where's that money going and how is that going to help students, right? And that's something that PA is really interested in, ensuring that money is being used for students and being really transparent with what it's being used for.
We have a follow-up question asking how to get involved with developing the policy at the state level to make colleges more accountable for addressing gaps.
Great question. So how to get involved at the state level with colleges, with ensuring the colleges are addressing transparency gaps? Okay, great. So, well, one great point that you all, or at least your association is involved with, is fixing financial aid. So I think having that coalition with UCSA and CSSA is really valuable. And that's like one bucket is college affordability and financial aid. And then the other bucket, which this student I think is referring to, is more of the actual funds that the college gets. And how are they getting those funds? So is California even giving them enough? And also, two, what are they using them for? So at the community college, I think one of the key steps I'd suggest, which is something I'm working on with my colleagues, is understanding the pots of money. It's really convoluted. Community colleges are part of K-12 funding in a sense with Prop 98. So just understanding like that whole thing is I would say the first step. That's something we're still working on. Their funding streams are different than CSU and UC because of how it's tied to some K-12 funding. And then also, I also suggest looking into the student success funding formula. So that's new, and it's supposed to help with like equity and moving the needle on student success and tying that to funding. It's still really new, and there's still a lot of questions around this funding formula. So I'd suggest them also researching more about that. And after understanding the large picture of funding, I think a key way is getting folks rallied on your campus, finding people who are also interested in this issue. For example, at UC Berkeley, there was a huge movement called Defund, not Defund, Fund the UC. And that started with, one, understanding the issue, and two, getting a lot of students mobilized around going to the Regents meetings and asking for more funding, ensuring they're also asking for funding at the state level. Like, what are your regions at your level? So for you all, it'd be the Board of Governors. What are they doing to advance issues that you care about with the state and with their own powerful body, right? And then two, just kept pressuring each year. There'd be a new campaign around Fund the UC. So really mobilizing folks around one main message, and that's just so easy and like, it's just catchy, Fund the UC, like, and getting students involved with that. So I'd say research and then getting students mobilized around kind of a clear way to understand what this issue looks like, and just bringing it back, because each year it didn't really go anywhere, but just bringing it back and being patient with it, which is, I think, one of the barriers with advocacy. It's like you'll see an incremental change, but if you keep pushing at it, then you'll get to more of that radical change as well. Any other questions from anyone? Oh, no, you're good, yeah. They're asking clarification around what?
If the Board of Governors developed the policies regulating the findings.
Oh, regulating the findings of what? Funding. Oh, so the question is if the Board of Governors created regulations around funding, which I think also another component, at least taking away the state level part of it, your segment has so much autonomy. So like your local colleges have a lot of power. So I'm not sure if they have regulations on funding, because I'm not sure if they can actually do that, since your districts and your colleges hold so much power compared to CSU and UC. Like there, with CSU, the head of CSU says goes, what the head of UC says goes. But here with your chancellor, like what she says doesn't necessarily, it just has to go through way more, I would say, I guess, vetting or more conversations at the local level before it becomes an actual policy. So that's one of the main changes I've seen, or differences. So I think with funding, I know they care a lot about funding the CC segment. There's a lot of advocacy around that. But in terms of once that funding comes down, I don't know exactly if there's regulations around how colleges get that money. But there should be, I think, something that CC could use more of is more like reports from the colleges sharing like what they're doing with this money, what they're doing with AB 705, what are they doing with other initiatives. You'll have so many initiatives in your segment, like guided pathways, vision for success, which are awesome, but what does that look like on the ground, and how are colleges reporting back to the Board of Governors and to the Chancellor's office on these things? It's great to have an initiative and put all this money, but if there's no reporting back, how do you see what's actually going on the ground, and what are the outcomes looking like? Great. Those are awesome questions, and more than happy to talk more offline. My email again, and I didn't put it on here, but if you have Twitter, follow me on Twitter. It's my name, Karina, and then my middle initials are G, and then my last name, Paredes. So that's just my handle if you want to keep updated on more higher ed issues offline, but more than happy to keep the conversation going, whether it's today or later, a month from now, a year from now, you're like, hey, I saw you present, I want to talk about this issue, more than happy to do so.